Well, welcome again to the flight deck, and we're going to keep pressing in. But we had our real good friends Jerry and Joanna, and they've been here for the launch of the deck, and you all know them and everything. But it was interesting because he made some statement about, well, you spend a lot of time, teaching on the months and stuff, and I just had to stop him because I said, I don't. And I got thinking about that, going, wow, okay, maybe I've missed something here. So I just want to touch on this because while I do that, that's not actually what we're studying. Because God does it this way, right? He just lays out his pattern of teaching and instruction. In here is to give you stories, give you case in point, and their principles, but there's a lot more stories, right? And so if there was a famine going on right now, what do you think we would be studying in here? Famine. Causes of famine. What's that? How do you pray, right? We'd be tracking with that, right? Or if someone was going to get married, we'd go to the right references in there. So we use times when God's doing things in the earth as prophetic triggers to where to go here and how to study. You all do that, right? Okay. Boy, I got a real need for this. Let me look. That's what a concordance is for. Fighting a lot of fear. Let me look all the things up about fear and do not be afraid. Anybody ever do that? Okay, come on. That's what we do. So there's relationships, finances, authority, and everything. And then the same is also true is about time. And so God puts references to time and he links them up with the tribes. And what I use that then is just very simply this as trigger points that say, pay attention to this. Because I figure like God's got a point about it, right? And we understand that, which is why we, even in the church we do Easter, which is not right? In the Bible here we do Passover and we do the resurrection because Easter isn't actually called Easter in the Bible. Okay? And there's other things like Thanksgiving, which isn't in the Bible, but that's a great thing because it gets us more feeling about thankful in doing that. And so when we get into a month, I just feel like it's God's way of saying, hey, I need you to pay attention to this because it's important now. So in that case, rather than having something outside that I'm using to trigger to put me in the Word somewhere, I'm using the Word to help shift my perspective on the things outside. And now it becomes a kind of filter. These parts of the Word helps me see opportunities and things going on and go, oh, now I know how to interpret that thing. Make sense? So we do a lot about the months, but it's really just because I'm trying to track what is the Spirit saying to the church now. If we want to just teach you about the months, we could do it in a weekend and you'd have it in a little binder and you'd go. But that ain't it, okay? So if anybody ever says, what is it you do at the flight deck on a Thursday night? You say, we are trying to hear what the Spirit is saying to the church now.
Amen.
Okay, that's just plain and simple, okay? That's always where it's going to be. It's going to be the Word and the Spirit, and we're going to stay aligned with those. So I just wanted to touch on that. And because of that, in this month, in this 5th month, the biggest event that happens in Scripture that's connected with it, there's a lot of awful things. The temple is torn down, the first temple. The second temple is torn down. Right? It's a huge time of mourning, but that is all historically tied back to one critical event. And that's when Israel has the chance to cross over into the promised land, and they say no. They do a refusal. They do what this horse did. Dig all 4 feet in and refuse to go. And so it's a month where we perceive that the divine intent of this month was what? That you cross over. So I hope you're paying attention to wherever situations are where God has you crossing over into something. And if not, you got to go, God, what is it? Where am I stuck that I'm unwilling to even see the opportunity? I'm sorry, he put it in his word. It's not my calendar. You get that, right? It's just like if you had a marriage issue or a financial issue or something else, we'd be going to here first. Because you need this more than you need my opinion. You need this more than you need even my opinion of that, right? So that's where we have to kind of stay, but you get stuck with some of that. So it's divine intent. The intent is leap, horse. Get your butt over it. There's greener grass on that side instead of digging in. So we not only look at divine intent, but then we look at decisions and refusals. Of course, you notice right where I put those words. If the shoe fits, for those of you who are acting a little bit like an ass. Okay, anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Anybody where that's been a problem, raise your hand. Okay. So, in this month, you could say, do you remember before, on this day in history, Do you remember that part? I used to do that, all these things. Okay, it's a similar kind of dynamic in this month, biblically. And so then we look at that, but we don't just look at it as a historical event and go, oh, why? Those guys were really jerks. How could they not trust God? But instead, we let it come back because all these things happen to them as instructions for us so that we wouldn't fall into the same mistakes. So what is God's plan for you now? Now. Now. Because this is a now month. This is a cross or don't. How do you know what his plan is? Will you agree or will you refuse? You always have an option. And you know what? He's still going to love you regardless.
Amen.
He is still going to love you and he's still going to care for you. But what are the consequences? Right? So this is a time, and God's been doing a couple of things, and you just have to kind of follow me on my rabbit trails and see how they connect, right? Because you showed up, and you know who I am, so sort of. Okay, so why didn't they cross? Bottom line. Fear, the fear factor. Ah, they're giants, right? And then, of course, it gets exaggerated, right? It's not just the giants, but it gets retold and retold. Now it's the land actually consumes. Okay? So what you're back to, we always go back, always go back, always go back. The enemy's strategies are very consistent. And the first question of Eve is, did God really say? Okay? That's getting played out here because God had promised to take them in there, right? He had promised to send his angel before them and clear the way. Go back and read all the promises, really clear. But what's happening in the murmuring there is another version of did God really say? And then the second part, the refute, right? The serpent said to Eve, you won't die. Okay? Well, in this case, it's you won't survive, right? You get it? It just starts with the same thing. Did God really say you would die if you ate the fruit? Did God really say he would go before you and clear out the land? You won't die. In this case, you won't survive. And then finally, there's this question, you know, God knows that once you do this, then, and it casts a suspicion on the heart and the intent of God. That God can't be trusted. You're going to be left high and dry. You're going to be up there with the giants. They're going to kill you, and they're going to take your children. And they're going to take your wives. And you know how we know that's how they know that? Because that's the very thing they said. Why did you bring us out here? Why did God bring us out here? It would be better if we went back to Egypt. Come on. We're going to elect a new leader, and we're going to go back to Pharaoh. Okay, so anyway. Fear factor. What is the opposite of fear? Faith? Sorry, what? Trust, faith, hope, love. Is it courage? Okay. Good. Well, let me do a couple things. I don't think the opposite of fear is faith. Do you know why?
Because there's no faith in fear.
Well, because fear is faith. Fear is both of the, right? Fear is faith about a certain bad thing that's going to happen. It is completely about the future. It is thinking that what you see is going to come get you. So I just want to, it was kind of interesting. I think the opposite has to do with this. I think the opposite of fear is confidence. I am confident. I'm not afraid. I'm confident, right? You get, was that, you work with that?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just give you some things. We're gonna work with this because that whole thing of confide, I'm gonna take you there. So if you go back to where this comes from, confidence comes from com. It's an intense prefix to mean a lot, and then fide or trust. See, like faith, right? And I sent you an email and said, by the way, most of you got it. My email out said, did you get my confidential note this morning? Yeah. I had some people came back and said, well, I got your email, but I didn't get the confidential note. So I had some very intelligent people call and ask me that, okay, and check. And it's like, well, no, just read the email. It's kind of in there, right? That's supposed to be a quote from God who's saying, hey, he confides in those. And to confide comes, of course, is related to that from the Latin confidere, to trust in, to rely firmly upon, believe. That's to confide. So you see the confidence and the confide. And so the things that God is confiding in you and speaking to you is a call to them, the confidence. Did God really say? Do you understand?
Yes.
Because this is about what you have to cross over to into the next thing. So it backs us up again about that hearing. But if you look at Psalm 25, and Psalm 25 is a remarkable place. Just hang out there for the month if you want. Just bake in it. But this is the beginning. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. In you I trust, O my God. Can you say that? Yeah. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. In you I trust, O my God. And see, there's just an amazing thing, because the first thing you got to do is what? You got to lift up your soul. You're understanding that there's a greater depth to you and a greater time frame for you than just whatever is temporary. You have a soul. And in that brief moment, time opens up and it sort of stops, and you're aware that you are immortal, that you will live forever in some state. And then you lift that up and you just make it the decision that I will trust in you. Now here's a picture to go with it.
Whoa.
To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. In you I trust, oh my God. Guy's actually leaning out against I think it was a 55 mile an hour wind. And he's just leaning over it, okay? You think he's an idiot? This is how a lot of the world will look at you, just so you know. You're trusting what? A dead guy? They strung him up on a cross?
But he lives.
Yeah, so you say. Right? I mean, that's the world. So here, that word is batak in the Hebrew, trust. And it's to confide in someone, to set hope and confidence upon. You see the confidence again? And the confide. And here, what is the difference then to have faith in and to trust? This to me is an important distinction, and I'm not getting real hyper on the words here. But there's a lot of talk about faith and belief. But that's so often in our culture is a lot of intellectual assent. Right? I believe that Mike is a good man. Right? But when I hand him my keys and my wallet, right, now I'm trusting him. And so to me there's that distinction to claim something, which is what a lot do. Oh yeah, I believe in Jesus. Oh yeah, I believe in this. Oh yeah, I believe in this. Versus doing it. Oh yeah? You believe that? Put your money where your mouth is, right? It's the old phrase. Or lately we talked about acting holy versus holy action, right? Being all in. Am I all in? Am I like this guy? Am I really leaning out into that? There's a trust game. Have you ever done that? Where you talk about trusting people and then you literally fall back and have them catch you. And I did that one time at a gathering, 350 people, a one-day conference we were having for the division of Pulte Homes. And I actually got up on a ladder with a team of people. And it was really interesting. They almost freaked out the first time. But it was to try to get to a point that we, as leadership, were having to get to a point of trusting them to that point. And if we don't, it wasn't going to work. So I can say I believe in you all the time, but if I don't put my life at stake in there, then I'm just being hypocritical. So let me give you a few other references about that word batak. And just in the Psalms alone, our fathers trusted in you and you delivered them. Good word? They trusted in you and were not confounded. I have trusted in the Lord, therefore I will not slip. Though war break out against me, that's a good one, I will trust. Trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land. Commit your way to the Lord, trust also in him, and he will bring it to pass. You get it? So a lot of calls to trust, to trust, to trust. Jim?
And in Proverbs 3:5 and 6, trust is tied in with not having understanding.
Trust in...
Not understanding.
Yeah, yeah.
He's not leaning on his understanding.
Yeah. He's leaning, that's right. There's a movie that says, you're doing that leaning thing, I think while you were sleeping. It's just sort of a funny line. Somebody leans into somebody else. Yeah, we have to be doing that leaning thing. Okay, so with that tee up. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. In you I trust, O my God. When I sent out the email, I wanted to get you into this passage. So let's just look at this. Who then are those who fear the Lord? He will instruct them in the ways they should choose. They will spend their days in prosperity, and their descendants will inherit the land. The Lord confides in those who fear him. He gives them a word. He makes his covenant known to them. So my eyes are ever on the Lord, for only he will release my feet from the snare. So, a couple things, right? Who then are those that fear the Lord, right? There is a reverence, there is a focus. It's going to tie with down at the bottom, my eyes are ever on the Lord. That's a manifestation of that fear factor, right? But it's not a fear in being afraid now, it's a fear in a focus. My eyes are ever on the Lord. I know how I'm going to get out of this. It's not going to be leaning on my own understanding. It's not going to be by my cunning and my manipulation. If I do, it's going to be really screwed up, even worse. I'm going to have to fear the Lord. But if I do that, look at this. He will instruct them in the ways they should choose. It doesn't say, and he will force you in the way you should go. He will instruct you in the way you should choose. Remember the crossing over? And he confides in you. He's going to instruct you in the way you should choose. Because John's way isn't going to be the same as mine. Connie's isn't going to be the same as Gail's. They've got individual destinies, so they have to lean into that. They'll prosper. You got to like that word, right? Their descendants will inherit the land. But the Lord confides in those who fear him. His covenant is made known to them. And my eyes are on the Lord. He'll release me from the snare. Any of you in a snare?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Increasingly, where do we go to first? Yeah, I believe in God, but I'm still going to do this. Okay, well, maybe you're supposed to do that, but what do you do first? Are you going to be focused there? Are you going to try and hear, get directed? Are you going to cry out to him, or are you going to first go? I mean, we tell a story one time. Levi moves very freely in the Spirit. It's just kind of there. You know, me, sometimes I kind of have to make a decision. I probably shouldn't tell you, but I will. I think it's a great story. And he had used the toilet one time and flushed it, and it started to overflow. And before you know it, he's going, "Shadagodio mokodio." He was immediately going into tongues. And it was really funny, but I thought, wow, that was really good. His first place was just walk into his prayer language. I thought my first thing would have been, oh crap, grab the plunger. Right? My first thing is lean on my understanding. His first thing right there was just pray. And I thought, wow, I got to do that better. I got to do that better, okay? Okay. He'll probably be embarrassed to say that, but it's, anyway. So the challenge always is that when we do hear, today, if you hear his voice, and it's today, then do not harden your hearts as you did that day in the wilderness. So this is the same thing we're confronted with. When I hear him, will I just harden to it? Will I harden to it? And if I do, there's a real danger, because then I get out of sequence and out of order. My confidence gets out of order, and we're going to move into that now. I want to watch time because I want to make sure we get time for Sarah. Look at the bottom line. Now we're ready to go up to the land the Lord promised. That is from the mouth of the Israelites. Does this sound like a good line? Now we're ready. I'm ready, God. Let's go. But yeah, there's a little bit before that, right? Okay. We're just, I'm proof texting here. Come on. Be like the Israelites. Say, now we're ready.
Now we're ready. We are ready.
Okay, just got to do it before this part, right? You know what happened. They had rebelled. Judgment comes down. The Lord replies, and he was going to strike them all dead. And Moses intervenes and says, oh, no. Don't do that. Because the reputation is going to get back to Egypt that you toasted them because you couldn't get them home. Don't. I love Moses has shifted. He's jealous for the glory of God. If you pray that way, things move. And it's not because God's an egotist, but because you're finally understanding how this works.
Yeah.
That as we move in alignment with God's glory, the goodness to people occurs. People are spared because I am slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love.
Yes.
That is what God reveals about his name to Moses when he hides him in the cleft of the rock. His glory is in that. Wow. Rather than his glory being in it, be a real killjoy. Anyway, the Lord replied, I have forgiven them as you have asked. So, again, when we do not cross, you will not lose your salvation. But here comes the other part. Nevertheless, as surely as I live and as surely as the glory of the Lord fills the whole earth, not one of those who saw my glory and the signs I performed in Egypt and in the wilderness, but who disobeyed me and tested me 10 times, not one of them will ever see the land I promised on oath to their ancestors. It was a will, it was a will, it was a will, it was a will. You were right in the line of the will, and now we're going to go, whoop, and you're going to get bypassed, and it's going to go to your kids. That's what you want to avoid. And there's a way to do that I want to show you. When Moses reported this to all the Israelites, they mourned bitterly. Well, yeah. The old thing about, are you sorry you did it, or are you sorry you got caught? It's sort of the latter there. Early the next morning, and this is where they get really messed up, they set out for the highest point in the hill country, saying, now we're ready to go to the land the Lord promised. Surely we have sinned. Okay, we got it. We sinned, so we are going to do penance now. Okay, God, I know that was the moment. I know that was the time, but watch how I make up for it. Jesus said, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how often I wanted to gather you to myself as a hen gathers her chicks, but you would not. You have missed the time of your visitation. There's a time thing. So let's look at the next part of this. But Moses said, why are you disobeying the Lord's command? This will not succeed. Do not go up, because the Lord is not with you. You will be defeated by your enemies. The Amalekites and the Canaanites will face you there. Because you have turned away from the Lord, he will not be with you, and you will fall by the sword. Presumption, right? But the bottom line, I just want to key this in. It put them out of time, but I want to say this to you. God's about redeeming your time. So if you miss a moment, repent.
Yes.
And say, oh Lord, what now? Because God is a God of second and third and fourth chances. And if you listen, he may say, okay, now I need you to do this. Because the key here is that the Lord is not with you. If there had been a deep and true repentance out of that, rather than a, oh crap, we got caught, who knows what God would have done. Nevertheless, in their presumption, they went up toward the highest point of the hill country, though neither Moses nor the ark of the Lord's covenant moved from the camp. They went without the presence. And we know what happened, right? Okay. So, I want to switch gears because I want to bring this out. This guy named Dan Sullivan is from strategiccoach.com. I really have enjoyed some of this guy's teaching. I heard about him from a guy who's my coach about something else, and I started to poke around, watch some videos. I don't know if he's a believer or not. I suspect he might be, but he's not. He knows entrepreneurs. He has studied all of them. The Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, all the great entrepreneurs and the small entrepreneurs. You'll go to a one-day workshop, it's $30,000.
Whoa.
This is the kind of dollars this guy commands. But as you look at him, this is him. He's not some big mover shaker. He's not some out-of-the-box kind of dramatic speaker. He's just very quiet and gentle. But he puts these amazing truths together. I thought I'd throw you a couple quotes just because this is fun. You'll like this one. People get old when they run out of future.
Then we're not ever going to get up.
Okay, yeah, but now pay attention to that, some of us, all. People would get old when they run out of future, okay? What's on your agenda? I was having this conversation with Mike about retirement. What are the kingdom purposes for them next? How are they going to refire and fulfill their purposes, right? Here's another one just kind of that Jim would like particularly. Making things clear and simple takes work. Being complicated and confusing is much easier. Ergo Washington, right? The debates tonight. Here's another one that's kind of fun. The problem is never the problem. The problem is that you don't even know how to think about the problem. You don't know how to look at it properly because you've gotten conditioned just to see the giants. You don't know how to think about it. Okay, I'm using the Christian version. But here's what I want you to get, is about this confidence being misplaced. So here's a conversation he has repetitively with very successful entrepreneurs about a breakthrough that they should be getting. And he'll ask him this: what's holding you back from getting the breakthrough that you need? And he will hear this time and time and time again. I'll make the move when I feel confident. That makes sense? You're an entrepreneur. You're not making the move. I'll make the move when I feel confident, right? And so then he comes back to, that's a very standard thing, just so you know. And he'll say, but confidence is a reward for making the breakthrough. You get that after you make the breakthrough, you get confident about it. So they go, okay, you're right. Well, I'll take action when I have the capability. And he goes, no, it doesn't work that way either, because capability comes after you've done something. After you've done it, now you have the capability. Before that, you don't know if you do. You got to try it, right? Whether you're turning bowls or turning pens, right? Starting a new class in something. I mean, you don't know if you're gonna have that. So here's how this generally works, is misplaced confidence. And I want to get this clear to you, because this is exactly what happened to Israel. This is the way it typically is. We want the confidence to be there. We want to be completely confident. This is 100% guarantee. The giants are going to, or they're not there at all. We could just walk in and take it, right? We want, that's the level of confidence. And out of that, then we feel like, okay, then we'll have, if we got that confidence, then I can rise and have the capability. And out of that, then I'll make that commitment. Knowing those things are in place, I'll commit to go forward. And out of that, then we'll get the conquest, right? And entrepreneurs can do this too. The thing that's really interesting, entrepreneurs actually will use this next formula for success. But once they get really successful, he said, what are you doing for your next breakthrough? They say, well, as soon as we're confident about this, and he just starts to laugh and go, the very way that you got here is the way you're going to continue to succeed. So let me show you this. The way it works is this. You have to start first with a commitment. You just have to make the commitment. You don't feel confident. And then you're going to have to add this, and this is the courage part. When you're confident, when you've made the commitment, and then you have the courage, you try it, right? This is, do you remember when you learned to drive? Do you remember the first time you stepped on the brake? Okay? You weren't very confident about it, but you made a commitment, right? And you got it. Do you remember how bad you were sweating first time you got in the car? Especially if you had a drive instructor or something like that, or your dad or somebody, you know, impose, okay, don't scratch the car. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So you had the commitment and you have the courage, and then out of that you begin to develop the capability. And as you develop the capability and you learn how to brake better and better and you drive more and more and more, now is when comes the confidence. But you see what happens is we get it messed around. For one, we don't want to deal with the courage. So we kind of pull that off and we say, well, I'll make the commitment, and then as soon as I feel confident about it, then I'll take the move. Right? See, I made the commitment to Jesus, but when I'm confident that I can witness, when I'm confident I can pray for somebody to get healed, when I'm confident I can do this, then. And so we get this, we get this messed around here, and we don't understand that the courage has got to be in there, and the capability and the confidence, and this is the way it flows. Does that make sense? And this is what we do time and time again. Well, as soon as I'm confident that I've heard right from the Lord, okay, well, we're going to have to, I think I heard I'm going to move forward on this. What do you think? Do you think I'm crazy? Maybe. Dan Sullivan. So, his question is this. When you've had a breakthrough, anybody have a breakthrough sometime? Like learn to drive? What did you commit to before the breakthrough? You had to make a decision. You had to make a commitment before the breakthrough ever got anywhere. Right? And then, when you're lacking capability or confidence, what do you have to rely upon? Courage. You're going to have to, right? That confident. It's misplaced confidence. You're trying to put it at the beginning, it's going to be at the end. You're just going to have to live with risk.
That's right.
Right? My former business partner, Jerry Hardis, an advisor, and our friends that were here, and they're on the board and everything else, he could live with greater levels of ambiguity. It was just amazing how comfortable he was with things being up in the air. Drove me nuts because I wanted everything lined up, alphabetical, and this, and this. And I had to learn a lot from that. And I'm still learning a lot from him. He's the one who gave me the phrase, he might have gotten it, this is a lot like nailing a raft together while you're floating downstream. Welcome to faith. You're in the stream and you're floating and you're nailing it together. If you're waiting for the whole raft to get put together, you ain't never going to get off the shore. Right? That's wanting the confidence first. And commit, have courage. You'll get the capability in the process. The confidence will follow. And so commitment plus courage equals the new capability and the confidence. Make sense? So when you're looking to cross over, it's the commitment. And you know what? There is so much here about crossing over into the new thing. Is it about finances? Is it about relationship? Is it about some new venture? What is it? You know? I had to just break off an alignment that I had with this group some of you know of. The group that I'd gone down to Florida with that and stuff. Because it was just like, you know what? Kim brought up some things and I went, okay, it's not a good alignment. And I had originally looked that there was going to be a lot coming out of that. And I just have to be committed and take the courage and cut that. So sometimes it's stopping something. Sometimes the crossing over is stopping something when you don't know what's next. Okay, now what? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We try to design a future where courage is not required. And you know, it's funny. This guy, these are quotes from him. He is not talking to believers. He's talking to entrepreneurs. He's talking to business people. This guy gets big bucks for talking to these guys. And he tells them, you're trying to design a future where courage isn't required. Because these guys have made all these great inventions and everything. What about this one? Well, as soon as we're confident we can do this, we'll do that. You're going to get there the same way. You make the commitment, you have the courage, you'll get the capability, and then you'll get the confidence. Okay?
It sounds like that show, Shark Tank. Those people commit, they step out in faith, then they come and try to sell it. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But that's these are the entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They create these amazing things.
You know, you have to understand, and get right to you, honey, the entrepreneur heart is a lot about kingdom. So a king departed and he brought his 3 servants to them and he gave them these 1, 1, 3, and 1, 5. And he said, go and risk it. And there was one who, because he didn't have confidence, what did he do? He just buried it. And it's not only a non-reward situation, he's tied up and bound and thrown out, right? I mean, he is severely punished. He's not just excused. And the others double up for risking it. So go ahead, Kim.
About 10 years ago, the Lord gave me a vision where he mantled me as a healer. And it really freaked me out. I remember saying, oh, you got this wrong, Lord. That vision's not for me. It's got to be for somebody else. And I was talking to my sister-in-law, Charlene, that many of you know, one day. And she said, so God's given you a vision. You've had many people pray over you and speak into your life, prophesy over you. You've been studying for almost 20 years at that point to be in inner healing and deliverance. When are you going to get it? What more does God have to say? This is the helicopter, get on. And I battled for a year and a half because I had no confidence. No, I have to take more classes. No, I have to pray more. No, I have to read more books. It was very worrisome. A year and a half, I battled mostly with myself, even more than with God. He just, I think, sat back there and smiled while I was going through all this mess. And she said to me, it's courage that you need. Because once you take that first step, you will realize he's put in you everything you need to do this job and to be successful at it. And that rattled around in my head for a while, but she was exactly right. The moment I stepped out to do what he called me to do, I had everything he needed to do. I needed to do it. It follows this exactly. It was very scary. but that's exactly how it is. It's courage that we need to step up.
Repeat this after me. Done
Done
is better than perfect.
is better than perfect.
It's a new phrase. I got it actually from a online webinar. A guy was talking about writing books and stuff like this. And it's something actually that apparently is thrown around in Hollywood circles on movie making. Done is better than perfect. If you wait for it to be completely perfect, it isn't going to happen. So you're going to have to just start and step out there. And it's interesting because Chuck Pierce just released this really pretty powerful prophetic word. And part of it is that speak to the rock in front of you, because that rock will now become a stepping stone for the next thing. That rock that you consider impossible, speak to it, and it will become a stepping stone for what's next. Done is better than perfect. You speak, you step. Okay? Joshua and Caleb got this. Let me just, I'm going to come back. Let me just give you an example of this. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, that being King Nebuchadnezzar, said, you got to bow down or we're going to have a roast and you're it. And they said, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. Now watch this. If we are thrown into the blazing fire, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. There you go. There is commitment and there is courage, right? Had they ever been thrown into a fire before? There is not the capability. Now I want to show you something that's rather interesting. Do they sound confident? They absolutely do. Okay, now read the next line. But even if he does not, you need to understand that. They had courage. They don't necessarily have the confidence yet. But even if he does not, we want you to know they're going back to the commitment and the courage. We will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. And just so you know that this didn't happen just in an instant, then a little verse later, he, the king, ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you're there, you're tied up, you're before the king. He is really ticked off. And now you got to wait while they get that furnace fired up 7 times hotter than it was. There goes another log and another log. And you're going, you know, it's getting kind of warm just out here. Another log, getting warmer. Shadrach, you still good? Hey. Right? You need to understand, this is just not instantaneous. There's time for them to think about it. You think Nebuchadnezzar isn't looking at them going, okay, boys, watch it. We're having a wiener roast and it's you. Barbecue. Babylonian barbecue. Here we go. Okay? But they would not. So, commitment and courage. To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. In you I trust. So that sense of remembering who I am an eternal being, not temporal. I have a temporal part and time, but ultimately I'm eternal. I lift up my soul. I'm trusting. I'm having my confidence in you. I will make the commitment. I'll show the courage. And as I walk in that will come capability and then confidence. So it's only with those, with commitment and courage, and in that order, that we the confidence in what he confides in you to do, to cross over into the new. Jim.
I think one word missing in this, though, that's very important is determination. When I was 7, 8 years old, and no brothers, sisters, nobody, I had nobody to teach me how to ride a bicycle. So my grandmother had my granddaddy go buy me a bicycle. And we lived on Patterson Street, and I used to walk it down the sidewalk in the Brookwood Pharmacy because I didn't want anybody to know. I wanted to know I had a bicycle, and I couldn't ride it. I had nobody to teach me. But I was determined that I was going to learn how to ride a bicycle. And so one day on the side street over there, I got a couple of my friends. I said, we're going to do it. I said, if I fall. But it was amazing once you got on there and then you started pedaling and they held you up and then let you go. The momentum, because of the determination, the momentum carried you forward.
Yep.
And then it was like old hat.
Yep.
You can do it all your life.
Yep. Yep. It's just that that cycle, it has to continue. The commitment, courage, the commitment, and the courage is the determination. It's just not a one-time thing. You're going to have to step out until the capability develops, and as it deepens, then you move into the confidence. And that's how we cross over, and that's why this original one about the confidence to launch. You have to understand that what pilots go through and all the steps. I won't get to it, but there's a whole thing in terms of the launch process that these guys go through. Right? They have a 50,000-pound rocket strapped onto their bodies. And they're about to get hurled down by a thing that can throw, an SUV a kilometer out to sea. But all the coordination and things have to be right, and the gear and locked in, and then they have to make the commitment, have the courage, and they signal, I'm ready to go. The guy hits the switch, they have their engines full throttle. Or not, right? There are occasions that don't. Okay, so raise your hands. You want some of this? You got it? Say, we are people, of commitment, and courage. And determination. Lord, I release that now. Just hold your hand, get a fresh measure. Because a lot of you have been waiting for confidence about something. And God's telling you, enough waiting. You make the commitment and you get the courage. You get the courage. It's your choice. Cross, don't cross. I've got more for you. I'll still love you if you don't. But I got a whole lot more. Lord, we just release that now in abundance. Commitment, commitment, commitment. Father, I ask that they will hear a fresh word. You confide in those who fear you. Lord, in your word, it's just filled with thousands of promises. Everyone here has a new promise that you want them to walk in. Yesterday's grace has been used up. They need a new measure. Show them a new light in the word. Challenge them. Have them make that commitment and then just raise up in courage and step out. Lord, help us be like Peter, who actually got to walk on the water and then got to live to tell about it. Because Jesus was right there. Lord, thank you for the next generation that you did take over into the land and they conquered it by your hand. Not by their own might, not by their own power, but by your Spirit. And I pray that encouragement, that strength, that word will resound in each and every person here, starting first and foremost with me. Lord, help me to get this as we step into the new work. We love you and we praise you in the name of Jesus. Amen.